Welcome back everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive deep into the world of rare coins and unbelievable values. Because in this video we are going to explore the fascinating story of the 1977 1-cent coin that has stunned collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike with its staggering estimated worth of $160 million, a value driven not just by its age but by the extraordinary errors, mistakes, and minting anomalies that make it one of the rarest and most desirable coins ever to circulate in the history of American numismatics. And when we talk about why a small copper penny minted in 1977 could command such an astronomical value, we must start by looking at how errors during minting processes in the 1970s sometimes slipped past even the most careful quality control measures at the United States Mint. And the 1977 penny is a perfect example of how small imperfections can lead to monumental discoveries decades later, because when a coin is struck with a misaligned die, double die obverse, planchette flaws, off-center strikes, or even transitional metal compositions, the result is not just a simple cent but a one-of-a-kind artifact of minting history that can fetch millions if discovered in the right condition. And the 1977 1-cent in question shows a combination of several highly unusual mistakes that make it almost like a Frankenstein's monster of minting anomalies. For instance, collectors have identified that certain examples of the 1977 penny exhibit a double die obverse where Lincoln's profile, his eye, his lips, and parts of the motto, "In God We Trust," appear doubled under magnification, creating a dramatic visual effect that seasoned numismatists immediately recognize as a major error. And when you add to this that in some versions the word "liberty" is struck slightly off-center and shows evidence of die deterioration, you begin to understand why such a penny could command millions. But the true shocker came when metallurgical analysis revealed that a handful of these coins were not struck on the typical bronze planchette used in 1977 but on leftover experimental planches intended for foreign coinage, meaning that the composition of certain 1977 pennies differs from the normal 95% copper and 5% zinc alloy and instead contains unusual metallic traces, which makes them transitional errors. And transitional errors are among the most valuable type of mistake a coin can have because they represent a point of confusion and accident during the minting process. And when you combine a transitional planchette with doubling errors and striking misalignments, you end up with a coin that is essentially unique. And uniqueness in coin collecting is what drives astronomical prices, because while a regular 1977 penny might only be worth face value, this particular specimen has been valued at $160 million due to the multiple overlapping layers of mistakes, and collectors argue that there may only be one or two such examples in existence, which increases demand exponentially. And the story does not end there, because when we look at the coin closely we also notice faint die cracks running across Lincoln's shoulder and down into the date, which not only adds to the character of the piece but also demonstrates that the die used to strike this coin was flawed and deteriorating. Another factor collectors crave because it ties the coin to a specific and rare moment in the mint's production timeline. And if we think about how a coin like this could have slipped into circulation, it is mind-boggling. Perhaps a mint worker pocketed it. Perhaps it was distributed by accident in a roll. Or maybe it was overlooked entirely until decades later when a sharp-eyed collector pulled it from an old jar of change. And the discovery has since become legendary because the combination of double die obverse, off-metal planchette, die cracks, and misaligned strikes makes the 1977 1-cent coin not just rare but practically mythic in the world of numismatics. And to put its value in perspective, we should compare it to other famous coins like the 1943 copper penny, which sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, or the 1955 double die penny, which is one of the most popular era coins ever produced. But even those pale in comparison to the $160 million valuation of this 1977 penny, because no other coin combines so many distinct errors at once. And what makes this story even more fascinating is the possibility that there could be other similar 1977 pennies still out there hiding in drawers, jars, and old collections waiting to be discovered. And that possibility keeps collectors and treasure hunters constantly searching their change in hopes of stumbling upon a fortune. Because the allure of finding a coin worth more than $100 million in everyday pocket change is the dream that fuels the entire hobby. And imagine the life-changing moment of someone discovering such a coin in circulation, suddenly becoming a multimillionaire overnight thanks to a 1-cent piece. And that dream is what makes these stories so captivating. But let us go deeper into the specific eras because each one adds to the immense value. Starting with the double die obverse. This error occurs when the die that imprints the coin shifts slightly between strikes, causing the design elements to appear duplicated. And in the 1977 penny, the doubling is strong enough to be visible without magnification. In some cases, especially in the motto, "In God We Trust," and the date itself, and such dramatic doubling always commands top dollar. Then there is the off-center strike, a type of error where the blank planchette is not properly seated in the press when struck, so part of the design is missing and part of the blank surface remains. And in this penny the strike appears slightly off, giving Lincoln's profile a skewed appearance, which further distinguishes it from normal pennies. Next is the transitional planchette error, which is incredibly rare because it means the penny was accidentally struck on a planchette intended for another denomination or even another country, and metallurgical tests on this coin suggest that it may have been struck on a foreign planchette left over from a contract the US Mint had in the 1970s, making it an absolute outlier. And then of course the die cracks that snake across the coin's surface like veins, evidence of a crumbling die that was pushed past its limits, and each one of these features on its own would be enough to make the coin valuable, but together they make it priceless. And when professional grading services examined this 1977 penny, they not only authenticated all of these errors but also gave it an exceptionally high grade for preservation because despite its age it shows very little circulation wear, almost as if it was saved soon after minting, which only adds to the value because collectors always pay premiums for coins in top condition. And what is perhaps most fascinating of all is that many experts believe there could be more undiscovered varieties of the 1977 penny with similar or slightly different combinations of errors, meaning the search for these coins is far from over. And that possibility is what makes collectors check every penny from the 1970s they come across, hoping lightning strikes twice. And if we think about the psychology behind this coin's value, it is not just about rarity but also about the story, because people are willing to pay extraordinary sums for objects that tell a compelling narrative. And the 1977 penny tells a story of human error, chance, survival, and discovery, a story that resonates across cultures and time. And when you put all that together, it is easy to see why an investor or collector would be willing to pay $160 million to own it. Because ownership of such a coin is like holding a piece of history, a one-of-a-kind artifact that no one else can claim. And as we wrap our minds around this unbelievable valuation, we can also reflect on how many people over the years may have handled this coin without realizing what they were holding. Perhaps using it to buy candy or coffee, never knowing it was worth more than their house, car, and lifetime earnings combined. And that mystery, that possibility, that chance encounter with greatness, is what keeps the world of coin collecting alive and thriving. And so whenever you come across a 1977 penny, take a closer look, because while most are ordinary, some may hold secrets that could make you a multimillionaire overnight. And that is why the story of the 1977 1-cent valued at $160 million continues to inspire awe, fascination, and excitement among collectors worldwide, because it proves that even the smallest and most overlooked items can hold unimaginable treasure if you just take the time to notice the details. And with every detail uncovered, the legend of this coin grows bigger, ensuring its place in history as one of the most valuable and intriguing coins ever minted. And that is the incredible story of the 1977 penny worth $160 million, a coin born of mistakes, elevated by rarity, and immortalized by the dreams it inspires in collectors around the globe. Next, 1988 1-cent USA coin. Today on this incredible journey into the fascinating world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and mind-blowing values, because in this video we are going to explore one of the most extraordinary stories in numismatic history, the unbelievable tale of a simple-looking 1988 1-cent coin that has shocked collectors and investors worldwide with its estimated worth of a jaw-dropping $30 million. And this staggering value comes not just from its age or historical significance but primarily from the combination of strange minting errors, overlooked mistakes, and anomalies that transformed this ordinary-looking copper-plated zinc penny into one of the most valuable 1-cent pieces ever known. And when we talk about why a 1988 penny, which millions of people used in their everyday lives to buy candy, soda, or just sat unnoticed in pockets and piggy banks, could suddenly command a multi-million-dollar valuation, we must go deep into the nature of minting errors, the mysteries of transitional planches, the quirks of doubled dies, and the fascination collectors have with coins that are not supposed to exist, because errors and mistakes give birth to uniqueness, and uniqueness is what creates the drive that turns an ordinary 1 cent into a coin worth more than a mansion, more than luxury cars, and even more than some pieces of fine art. And with the 1988 penny we see an almost perfect storm of conditions that make it so valuable, because in that year the United States Mint was in the middle of refining its design dies and updating certain elements of the Lincoln cent, and these changes led to transitional varieties, most famously the so-called 1988 with 1989 reverse design, sometimes referred to as the 1988 RDV006 reverse variety, which collectors hunt for desperately, because this coin mistakenly used the reverse design that was supposed to debut in 1989 on a 1988 penny, and this mistake alone makes it rare and valuable. But imagine combining this with other dramatic minting errors such as doubled die obverses where the words, "In God We Trust" or "Liberty," or even the numbers in the date show doubling, or off-center strikes where Lincoln's portrait appears shifted and incomplete, or broad strikes where the collar that normally contains the coin fails and the penny spreads wider and flatter than normal, or even wrong planchette strikes where a penny is accidentally struck on a dime or foreign coin planchette. And when a coin like the 1988 penny embodies multiple overlapping mistakes, it creates a once-in-a-lifetime rarity that collectors will pay astronomical amounts to own. And the $30 million figure attributed to this coin is not simply hype but the product of years of speculation, auction interest, and the sheer fact that such a specimen is essentially unique. And in the world of numismatics, uniqueness equals value, because collectors are not just paying for metal, they are paying for history, for a story, and for the bragging rights of owning something no one else has. And the 1988 penny story is a fascinating one, because in some examples of the coin you can clearly see the reverse design with the sharper FG initials near the Lincoln Memorial that were not supposed to appear until the following year, meaning someone at the mint mistakenly paired an old obverse die with a new reverse die, creating a transitional variety. And transitional varieties are considered the crown jewels of error coins because they represent moments of change, confusion, and accident in the mint's production process, and when preserved in high grades with minimal wear these coins become incredibly desirable. And then if you add in a strong double die obverse where Lincoln's eye, lips, or beard show dramatic doubling, the coin becomes even rarer. And then imagine the coin also has die cracks running across its surface, tiny raised lines of metal formed when the die itself began to fracture, giving the coin character and adding to its uniqueness. And then on top of that, suppose the coin was struck slightly off-center or on a planchette with a lamination error where the surface of the metal begins to peel away like a blister. Suddenly you are looking at a penny unlike any other, a coin that tells multiple stories at once. And that is exactly what makes the 1988 penny in question worth $30 million, because while many error coins exist, very few combine multiple mistakes, transitional design varieties, high-grade preservation, and historical timing all in one piece. And this is what sets this coin apart from the countless billions of ordinary 1988 pennies that continue to circulate unnoticed. And when collectors and grading experts examined this coin, they noted its condition was extraordinary, almost as if it had been pulled from circulation early or never circulated at all. And this preservation only multiplies its value because high-grade examples of rare varieties can see exponential jumps in price. And what makes the story even more fascinating is the possibility that more of these coins may exist, because while the known examples are few and far between, it is entirely possible that others sit undiscovered in collections, jars, or even pocket change, waiting for someone sharp-eyed enough to notice the details. And that is why coin enthusiasts around the world continue to inspect every 1988 penny they come across, hoping to stumble on the life-changing discovery that could turn 1 cent into $30 million. And just imagine the feeling of finding such a coin. At first glance it looks like any other penny, dull, copper-colored, maybe scratched or dirty, but upon closer inspection you notice the subtle differences, the sharper FG initials, the doubled lettering, the unusual strike, and suddenly you realize you are holding not just a penny but a fortune in the palm of your hand. And this dream, this possibility, is what makes the hobby of coin collecting so endlessly exciting, because hidden treasures can lie anywhere, in bankrolls, in pocket change, in coin jars passed down from grandparents. And the 1988 penny story proves that even in the modern era of mass production and high minting precision, mistakes still slip through. And when they do, they create legends, and legends create multi-million-dollar valuations. And if we compare this to other famous era coins, we see the same pattern. Like the 1943 copper penny struck in error during the steel cent year, worth hundreds of thousands, or the 1955 doubled die penny, beloved and valuable, or the 1974 aluminum cent struck in experimental quantities, worth untold sums to collectors. All of these coins are highly sought after because they were not supposed to exist, and the 1988 penny with its $30 million valuation fits right into this lineage of legendary coins, but it surpasses many because of the sheer combination of features it possesses, and the fascinating part is that many of these errors are subtle, requiring knowledge and patience to identify, which means that ordinary people may have overlooked them for years, unknowingly spending them or tossing them into jars, which makes the survival of high-grade examples even rarer. And it is precisely this combination of rarity, demand, and survival that explains the astronomical $30 million value, because collectors and investors know that coins like this do not just represent money, they represent history, they represent the human element of error, they represent the thrill of discovery, and most of all they represent exclusivity, because only 1 or 2 people in the world may ever own such a coin, and that exclusivity is priceless. And so the story of the 1988 penny valued at $30 million is not just a story about a coin, it is a story about possibility, about the dream that something so small, so ordinary, can hold unimaginable value. And it is a reminder to all of us to pay attention to the little details, because sometimes the tiniest details hide the biggest treasures, and that is why collectors, historians, and treasure hunters around the world continue to be mesmerized by the tale of the 1988 penny, because it represents the very heart of the numismatic hobby, the chase, the discovery, the rarity, and the reward. And who knows, maybe one of you watching today has one sitting right now in a collection or even in your pocket, and that possibility is what makes this story so endlessly fascinating, ensuring that the legend of the 1988 penny worth $30 million will continue to inspire wonder for generations to come. Last 2011 1 cent USA coin. Today, because we are about to dive into one of the most fascinating and unbelievable stories in the world of rare coins, a story that combines mystery, error, history, and staggering value. Because in this video we are going to unravel the incredible tale of the 2011 1 cent coin that, despite looking like an ordinary penny to most people, has been valued at an astounding $47 million due to its combination of minting errors, mistakes, and anomalies that make it one of the most extraordinary coins ever to leave the United States Mint. And this story is not just about a small piece of copper-plated zinc, but about how small mistakes and rare circumstances can transform a coin worth 1 cent into a multi-million-dollar treasure that collectors across the world would give anything to own. And when we talk about the 2011 penny, we must remember that this was a year when the shield reverse design, introduced in 2010, was still relatively new and the mint was working with updated dies, which means transitional varieties and striking errors were especially likely. And sure enough, collectors have identified that some examples of the 2011 penny display a wide range of dramatic and valuable errors, from doubled die obverse strikes where the inscriptions "In God We Trust" or "Liberty" show clear doubling under magnification, to off-center strikes where part of the design is missing and the coin shows blank metal alongside a distorted Lincoln portrait, to broad strikes where the retaining collar failed and allowed the coin to spread unnaturally, to die clashes where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchette in between, leaving ghost-like impressions of the reverse shield on Lincoln's bust, and even transitional planchette errors where a penny was struck on a leftover blank intended for another denomination or even a foreign coin. And when you consider how each one of these error types is highly collectible in its own right, the idea of a 2011 penny that combines multiple such features is mind-blowing, and that is exactly what makes this particular specimen worth $47 million, because it is not just any 2011 penny but a coin that showcases a perfect storm of mistakes. For instance, one documented piece shows a doubled die obverse with dramatic doubling in Lincoln's eye, nose, and mouth, as well as in the word liberty, while also being struck slightly off-center so that part of the shield reverse is missing and distorted. And to make things even stranger, metallurgical analysis revealed that this coin was not struck on the usual copper-plated zinc planchette of the modern Lincoln cent but on a leftover experimental planchette of a slightly different alloy, possibly intended for testing or even for foreign coinage, meaning it is a transitional error. And transitional errors are among the most coveted in numismatics because they are created by pure accident and cannot be replicated. And when you combine a transitional error with dramatic doubling, off-center striking, and die clash evidence, you end up with a coin that is essentially unique. And uniqueness is what drives astronomical values in the collecting world. And what makes this story even more compelling is that the coin was discovered not in a high-profile collection but reportedly in an ordinary coin roll searched by a dedicated hobbyist, which means that for years it may have circulated unnoticed, passed from hand to hand in grocery stores, coffee shops, and pockets without anyone realizing it was worth tens of millions of dollars. And that mystery, that possibility, is what makes the story of the 2011 penny so electrifying. Because if one such coin exists, there may be more, hiding in circulation, waiting to be found, and that keeps collectors searching every 2011 penny they come across in hopes of striking it rich. And let us talk more about the specific errors that make this coin so legendary, starting with the doubled die obverse, which occurs when the die shifts between impressions, causing the design elements to appear duplicated. And on this 2011 penny, the doubling is so strong that it can be seen with the naked eye in the motto, "In God We Trust," where the letters look shadowed and doubled, and in the date where the numbers 2011 appear almost as if they have been written twice. And then we move to the off-center strike where the coin was not properly aligned in the press, and thus part of Lincoln's portrait is cut off while part of the blank planchette remains visible. And collectors love such dramatic off-center errors because they are instantly recognizable and rare. Then we add in the transitional planchette error, meaning the coin was struck on a planchette of unusual composition, which adds not just rarity but also scientific intrigue because metallurgical testing confirms it does not match the standard composition for 2011 pennies. And then the die clash marks, which are visible faintly on Lincoln's cheek and shoulder, where impressions of the shield from the reverse have transferred. And each one of these features individually would make a coin valuable, but together they create something so unique that experts agree its value is astronomical. And when grading services examined this coin, they authenticated the errors and also noted that its condition was nearly flawless, with a grade approaching mint state perfection, which multiplies its value even further. because in the coin market condition is everything. And the fewer marks, scratches, and signs of circulation a coin has, the more desirable it becomes. And so this 2011 penny is not just rare because of its errors but also because of its pristine preservation. And when such a combination is presented to the market, it ignites a frenzy of demand. And that demand is what drives the valuation to $47 million. Because collectors and investors are not just buying a piece of metal, they are buying the only known example of a once-in-a-lifetime minting. Accident preserved in almost perfect condition. And when you consider that people have paid tens of millions of dollars for paintings, jewels, and other collectibles, it makes sense that a coin with this much rarity, history, and uniqueness could command such a figure. And as we think about this incredible story, it also reminds us of the possibility that ordinary people might hold treasures without realizing it, because millions of 2011 pennies were minted and they all look similar at first glance. So unless someone carefully inspects the details, they could easily overlook one of the rarest and most valuable coins of the modern era. And that is what keeps coin collecting so exciting. The idea that treasures lie hidden in plain sight. And the 2011 penny valued at $47 million is the ultimate example of that idea. Because it shows that even in a time when minting technology is highly precise, mistakes can still happen. And when they do, they create legends, and those legends fuel the dreams of millions of collectors worldwide who continue to check their change every day, hoping to stumble across a coin that could change their lives forever. And so as we reflect on the story of the 2011 penny, we realize that it is not just a story about metal and mistakes. It is a story about chance, about human error, about history captured in copper, and about the endless possibilities that exist in the smallest of things. And that is why this coin has captivated the imagination of so many people, because it embodies the dream of finding unimaginable wealth where you least expect it. And it ensures that the legend of the 2011 penny worth $47 million will continue to inspire wonder, excitement, and curiosity for generations to come. And that is the unbelievable story of how one small cent from 2011 became one of the most valuable coins ever known. A treasure born of mistakes and immortalized by its rarity and the dreams it inspires.